We have made it through another week. Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Nessens Lauren Campbell, joined as always by Massachusetts Pirates team reporter Jake Iggy. Now, we teased on Thursday's episode that we would have a very special guest for Friday. It is finally Friday. Our guest is here, and we are ready to talk the Rule 5 draft selections. We're ready to do some Hall of Fame talk and a little bit of everything else in between. So let's just get right to it.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are here with Ian Browne, who is the Red Sox beat writer for MLB.com. So how are we doing today, Ian?
I'm doing great. Yeah, just enjoying the little snow we had yesterday, and glad it wasn't too much. But Christmas is coming, so it's a good time of year. So all is well with me.
Exactly. I found it kind of interesting with it being December 9th, and this is kind of like the first snow. And it's pretty crazy thinking about that, especially with how close Christmas is coming.
Yeah. Always put it off as long as possible, but you like to have a little snow on the ground for Christmas. So we'll see what happens. We have a couple more weeks.
Couldn't agree more. So I want to sort of start with talking to you about the Rule 5 minor league draft and getting your thoughts on the two players that the Red Sox selected, Austin Lambright as well as Brian Keller. But I don't know about you, but I completely forgot that this Rule 5 draft was kind of going on with all this lockout stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's no major league phase this year, at least not right now with the lockout is going on. So they still had the minor league phase because that doesn't involve anybody who is on the 40-man roster. So the difference with the minor league phases, it's not like with Garrett Whitlock last year where you take a guy in the Rule 5, you have to keep him on the major league roster. That's not how this works. This is just strictly getting a guy from another organization who they didn't protect. So the Red Sox took a couple flyers on some 27-year-old pitchers, one from the Royals, Austin Lambright. He's a lefty, former 10th round pick. And then Brian Keller, a righty, also 27 years old. He's more of a swingman, can start and relieve. So, nothing to lose. Just see what you got with these guys. And I think that, a lot of people took note of the fact that they took somebody else from the Yankees because, that worked out so well last year. But, Keller's not as big a prospect as Whitlock. But I think Chaim Bloom has shown in his time with the Red Sox that he's pretty good at identifying talent that other people might not see. So, if you get success and have either one of these guys be a guy who can get to the big leagues for you, then it was well worth taking. And as far as the Red Sox, none of their players got taken in the draft. So it was a good day for them overall.
Does Lambright's not pitching since 2019, is that any concern to you? Obviously, the 2020 season did not happen. But with an injury and then not pitching in 2 years, is that of any concern to you or for Lambright going forward?
Yeah, no, I think that they're looking at the Garrett Whitlock blueprint because that's how they got him. He hadn't pitched, he didn't pitch at all last year, and he didn't pitch in 2019 because he had Tommy John in 18. So he was really somebody who had fallen off the radar, and the Red Sox happened to see an Instagram video of him working out, and they were impressed with what they saw. Took a chance, and he became, their best relief pitcher last year. So I think that that's probably why they know that if not for Lambright not pitching the last couple of years, they probably wouldn't have got him. So they figured, it's worth the risk. So it'll be, I can't wait to see whether that pans out at all.
That Instagram video is something that always makes me laugh. It's so interesting how social media works in those types of ways. But also looking at Brian Keller, as you mentioned, the Red Sox got him from the Yankees. And as you mentioned, he started 11 of the 26 games that he appeared in. But do you think that the Red Sox will most likely use him as like a long reliever in the bullpen, or could we potentially see him being slotted in if we maybe see another like COVID outbreak or some injuries in the pitching rotation?
Yeah, I think they'll get him to spring training. They'll get their eyes on him, and maybe a lot of these guys get stretched out as starters in spring training and kind of see what they got here, and see how it takes. See what kind of pitch mix he has, and if he's ready to get at least upper minor league guys out, if he has the stuff to get through a lineup twice. If not, maybe they'll simplify it and it becomes a reliever. So I don't think they're in any rush to figure out how they're going to use these guys. They're both kind of depth guys. The fact they're 27 years old, you can't have hopes that are too high on guys like this. They've obviously been kicking around for a while, and obviously you mentioned with Lambright, there's some health factors there that have delayed him. So take a shot, see what you got, and hopefully one of them pans out.
With pitchers like Keller possibly going from starter to bullpen and back and forth, could that mess with his confidence? I mean, he's been doing it. That's kind of who his identity is right now. But we've seen that with the Red Sox before. We've seen that with previous pitchers in the past where it kind of messes with them. Could this be the case for Keller, or do you see him kind of just going with the flow because this is just what he's done?
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at where he was drafted. I just looked it up. He was a 39th round draft pick. He was the 1,178th pick in the draft out of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. So I think a guy like that, you're just happy that you're employed by an organization, especially one like the Red Sox that's giving you a shot. So you're just thrilled that you're still pitching. Lambright was a little bit of a higher, more highly touted prospect at one point. He was a 10th round pick by the Royals in 2018. Like you said, he's had the injury. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But I think both of these guys will be happy in whatever role you put them in.
I do find it kind of interesting with all the guys that Chaim Bloom has gotten so far in the Row 5 draft, whether it's in the minor league or major league over his time with the Red Sox. We saw Ort, Espinal, as well as Whitlock last year, and now 2 pitchers here. Could you potentially see him getting more pitchers in the major league Row 5 draft, or do you think they could potentially go more towards position players?
Yeah, no, I don't know. We'll see. First of all, we'll see if there is a major league Rule 5 draft this year. It's all kind of unclear how this is going to shake out. I think Chaim Bloom right now, what he's looking for to improve his team for next season is bullpen. I think he feels pretty good about his position player allotment right now. I think he feels pretty good about his starting rotation. He added Rich Hill. Of course, we're all familiar with him. He added James Paxton, and he added Michael Wacha. So I think that he's added some real depth to the rotation, and he's given himself some options to go with Sale, to go with Evaldi, to go with Pivetta, and also Houck and Whitlock. These guys could be starters too. So they're just trying to build as much starting depth as they can right now. But I do see the shortcoming of this team right now, if you look at it, without question to me, is the bullpen. They got to load up on quality relievers, setup men, closing types, whatever they can do.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, it's been the bullpen for so long. Even the prospects, there just hasn't been a lot of pitching depth. So like you said, if either one or both of these guys could pan out, it's going to make Chaim Bloom look like a genius. I mean, he's already made some great moves, but these have a chance to make him really look like a genius here.
Yeah, exactly. And look, poor Alex Cora. I say poor Alex Cora, but the 2 times he's managed in the playoffs, he's really needed a high wire act with the bullpen to get them through, using the starters as relievers, and that worked so well in 2018. He might have pushed it a little too far this past year in 2021, where that didn't work out. But I think that they just need to stock up on relievers and see what they can get, and really have that lockdown bullpen that you need for next year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And
we do have more to talk about with MLB.com's Ian Browne, and we will get you right back to our conversation. But first, I do need to tell you about Built Bar. It's the holiday season, so grab that protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar, and that is a Built Bar. It's filled with so much holiday goodness. It's rich with decadent flavor. You'll never know that they're amazingly low in calories, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You truly get the best of both worlds when it comes to Built Bar. There are so many flavors. You'll definitely have a hard time choosing which one. There's raspberry, there's double chocolate. My personal favorite, cookies and cream. I absolutely love cookies and cream. I have one almost every day. And Built Bar will give you that extra fuel that you need to bust down those mall doors and get your holiday shopping done. But because it is the holiday season and it's the season of peace and love, whatever you do, do not bring up your favorite Built Bar at your family gathering, because people are super passionate about what their favorite flavor is, and it may cause some sort of blowout. But hey, if your family's like mine, there's always going to be some sort of drama around the dinner table. And if you're friends with Santa, make sure you tell him to throw a few Built Bars in your friends and family stockings. With so many different flavors, it's definitely sure to make your friend and family's mornings a happy one. And I have a little holiday secret for you. Grab a Built Bar and dip it into a piping cup of hot chocolate. Let it melt a little, and it gives your beverage just a little bit of that Built Bar flavor. Plus, then you have a nice melty Built Bar to go along with it. Be sure to grab some napkins, though, because it could get messy. And if you like some of those marshmallowy treats around the holidays, be sure to get your hands on the Built Bar Puffs. They're light, they're fluffy, and they're marshmallowy through and through. There's different flavors, and they're all covered in chocolate. They taste so good, you'll have no idea they're filled with protein. And we have a special offer for you. Head on over to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. I also want to tell you about Stance because I just received some Stance items in the mail, and let me tell you, the colors are amazing. They're so comfortable. And lately, I've been hearing more about Stance, and that's because they just released their athletic apparel line. And you know me by now, I live in an active life. I'm in the gym almost every day. I try to be as active as possible, especially now that it's getting dark here in Boston at like 4 o'clock. So with the launch of this athletic line, it's the perfect time for this because it's holiday gifting time. And Stance is the coolest gift you can give. I cannot get over how comfortable they are. They're well made, their socks, their shirts, their joggers, their hoodies, they're all so soft. I'm a big hoodies and joggers kind of person, and these are by far the most comfortable joggers I have ever worn in my life. And I have a few friends who have worn Stance before, and they would always tell me, "Oh, Lauren, it's so comfortable. You have to get yourself a pair." And I was like, I don't know. Like, you guys have lied to me before. And I honestly thought Stance was just another one of those trends that people are always coming up with, but I was very happy to be proven wrong because that changed when one of my friends ended up giving me some Stance joggers, and holy Moses, do I absolutely love them. I would live in them if I could. Stance was founded in 2009, and its apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self-expression. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. I absolutely love that Stance has teamed up with MLB. They have some really cool Red Sox socks in there. I have a lot of friends who are big Harry Potter fans. They've collabed with Harry Potter as well. And Stance has also collabed with Star Wars and The Office, Disney, Marvel. It seems like you name it, they're going to have a collaboration with somebody really awesome in the industry. Like I mentioned, my Stance joggers are my go-to item. I am always wearing them. They are so cozy. Like I said, I would live in them if I could. I have several pairs of joggers that I wear, and it's always, I'm looking for the Stance ones right away. If they're dirty, I get kind of bummed because I was like, no, now it's going to take an hour or two to wash them, but all's well that ends well when it comes to Stance. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in, and that those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself, register for an account right at stance.com, and get 15% off your purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to receive 15% off your first order. Enjoy the color and the comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. Welcome back to the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. We are going to get you right back to our conversation with MLB.com's Ian Browne.
You actually wrote an article recently about a Red Sox prospect, Brandon Walter, who was drafted number 26 in the 2019 draft out of Delaware. And it's really interesting, this guy's story, going into the draft, his draft stock completely dipped because of Tommy John surgery after it ended his 2017 college season. So what was your experience sort of covering Walter and, his whole story?
Yeah, I was fascinated because I had never really, you hear so much about the Red Sox prospects. Like, this is a system that's really hyped up. You have guys who are writing about it all the time. And then you see that Brandon Walter was named the pitcher of the year for the Red Sox minor league system by MLB Pipeline. And then you go look it up and you're like, wow, this guy was a 26 round draft pick. How did he get to be pitcher of the year? And he was, Yeah, he was 24 years old to start last season. He's pitching an A ball, which usually, it's much younger guys pitching an A ball. So it just, things started slow with him. He was in the GCL in the 2019 season, right after he got drafted. And he told me he was surprised he'd get at least moved up to Lowell. And then you have the COVID season, which kind of screwed up everyone in the minor leagues. And he said, look, I was home in Delaware for a year because he didn't get called to summer camp or any of these, or the taxi squads or anything. He was just sitting home for a year. So instead of dwelling on that, he made himself better. He was in the gym every day, working out and working on his fastball, working on his delivery, working on his mechanics, a lot of biomechanical work. Well, lo and behold, this guy added 4 or 5 miles an hour to his fastball. He came to spring training last year, and he was throwing 96 miles an hour. So that really opened their eyes, and it gives them a prospect now that they can look at. You'll probably see him start the year in Double-A in 2022, and he's got a real shot to be a difference maker on the team with that. He's got the 3-pitch mix, and he can get through a lineup. They think he can get through a lineup 2 to 3 times. I know Brian Abraham, their director of player development, really high on this kid, and really opened eyes just the improvements that he made between COVID shutdown and when he came to camp last year, just the way he pitched during the season last year, starting at the low A Salem, moving up to high A Greenville, where he became a full-time starter. He was a bit of a swing man earlier in the year last year, but he's proved to them he can start. So he's one of the guys you're really going to be keeping an eye on for the Red Sox next season.
Do you think a story like his will continue to maybe not take or not have players fall so much in the draft? Because even though Tommy John surgery is very daunting, it's very long recovery. We've seen so many success stories. Nate Eovaldi, Chris Sale is coming back. He looked really good when he first came back. So do you think that at any point maybe scouts or teams going into the draft will look at a story like this one and be like, look what he's done? And I know that he had Tommy John surgery, but maybe it's worth the flyer. Maybe it's worth, there's a reason he was projected to be so high. Maybe we should just stick with this and get this guy.
Yeah, it's really about projectability because, look, the problem was that he was back from the Tommy John surgery. He pitched a full season in his final college season of 2019, but he'll tell you he wasn't throwing the ball like he could. That wasn't the guy. So the Red Sox had to look beyond that, look at his frame, look at who he was, look at the surgery he had, and say, is there any more projectability? Can he kind of become more than what we're seeing right now? So 26th round, you might as well take a shot. And they did. And then he really deserves the credit because he's the one who put in the work. But yeah, I think that Tommy John is not a death sentence by any means. And, look at what Whitlock did this last year. So I do think that, that might be something that teams look at more in the future.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because, as you mentioned, Lauren, Tommy John surgery can be such a daunting type of surgery that really you never know how a pitcher's really going to come back. Some pitchers come back even stronger, and some pitchers it ruins their career. But with Walter, it was really interesting how for the first time this past season he was a reliever when he first came over to the Red Sox. And you mentioned, Ian, that he has a really good 3-pitch mix. Do you think that he'll mainly stay as a reliever, or do you think that the Red Sox could try and try him at the starting position?
Yeah, no, I think they're pretty locked in on him as a starter now. He kind of proved that last year they put him into the rotation second half of the season, and he really excelled. So if you can get a good starter, those are harder to find than good relief pitchers. You can always, if it doesn't work out as a starter, you can always push him back and make him a reliever. But coming through high school, college, he was always a starter, and it was just because he wasn't throwing as well following the surgery that they started him as a reliever in their system. He was a swing man last year for a while, and then they said, "Whoa, this guy, he's got the stuff of a starting pitcher." So I think that's where you're going to see him pitching going forward, and if he can succeed at that level. He's obviously going to go up to Double-A and then hopefully go up to Triple-A. And if he can get to the major leagues, we can get guys out as a starter. I think that's the way to go with him. But, long, lanky, left-handed frame. Those guys don't come around every day. So there's a lot to like with this kid.
And so for fans who don't really know Brandon Walker, when do you think they'll potentially see him at Fenway? And you mentioned that he'll probably be starting in Double-A right now and maybe potentially move on to Triple-A, but could we see this guy potentially in the Red Sox rotation or bullpen by 2023, 2024?
Yeah, I think, look at his age. I mean, he's 25. So he's actually going to turn 26 at some point next season. So I think that, 2022 is the year he rounds out his development, pitches maybe 2/3 of the season for AA Portland, and then goes up to Worcester for maybe the last third of the season. And we'll see how he does. And then, I think he's in play. Maybe completes his development at AAA beginning at 23, and then maybe you see him at some point in the 23 season for the Red Sox if he pans out, kind of the way they're hoping he will. It'd be a great story, right? 26. You got to love to see a 26 round draft pick who kind of just comes through the system, because most of these guys you hear about are the top 5 round picks.
Right.
It's not these guys that you don't see these guys every day. So I'd love to see the story play out, and love to see him kind of get up there and do some damage in Boston.
Yeah, we love a good success story, especially here in Boston. I mean, we had Tom Brady for 20 years, the almost 200th pick. So
right.
let's make this guy the next Tom Brady. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, no pressure.
No, none at all.
Yeah, you're right. That'd be a great story. And it'd be really cool to look back at your whole article about him. And maybe you can write another one when he becomes a superstar for the Red Sox, hopefully. But
we still have more to get to here on Locked On Red Sox. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season, which means more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march toward the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive that 50% bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, do not wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
I wanted to talk to you about as well the Hall of Fame voting that's coming up, and we're seeing David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez. They're going to have their first opportunity to be first ballot Hall of Famers. But two guys and another guy as well who played for the Red Sox, Curt Schilling. It's really been interesting to see all the uproar over the last few years about him getting so close last year to making it into the Hall of Fame. But, some of his words and some of his stances are really getting in his way.
Yeah, and I do think I want to credit Curt Schilling because he hasn't said a whole lot the last year since he pulled the whole stunt last year where he said he was so upset that he didn't get in. He said, take me off the ballot next year.
Yeah.
They didn't take him off the ballot. It was against the ethics of the board of directors of the BBWA to do that. But he's done a good job not stepping in it, over this last year. And I'm hoping that I covered every pitch this guy threw in Boston, basically. Also, from a national basis, I covered him in the 2001 NLCS with Arizona and the 2001 World Series against the Yankees. And I've never seen a pitcher who rose to the occasion. He was kind of like the David Ortiz of pitchers, the way he rose to the occasion in big games. And also his regular season numbers are great too. This guy was the ultimate competitor. Nobody studied more than Curt Schilling. And I think it's just time for writers to stop looking at what he said and who he's trying to troll or whatever. And just, was this guy a Hall of Famer on the mound or not? Yes, he was. Did he commit any crimes? No, he didn't commit any crimes. Was he ever associated with steroids even once? No, he was. I think anybody who saw him without his shirt off could tell you that this guy never took a steroid. He wasn't exactly a picture of physical fitness. So this guy, absolutely, to me, no brainer, 100% belongs in the Hall of Fame. I hope he gets there because I really think he deserves it. And I just hate it when petty. I know that he didn't help himself with some of the things he did or said, but I just hate it when petty things from voters prevent someone from getting into the Hall of Fame. So let's do right by Curt Schilling, who played the game the right way his entire career, and let's hope that he gets in the Hall of Fame this year.
I think that was the biggest thing for me looking back on Schilling's career and the bloody sock and everything he did even before that. And for me, it was like the wins, the career wins. Like they're not over 200 wins is still not anything to stick up your nose up at. But you have other pitchers in the Hall of Fame who have a lot more wins than that. But you look at the strikeouts, you look at what he did in the postseason, and he never won a Cy Young. So I was like, those numbers all of a sudden become a little bit more impressive because he was so consistent. And I think a lot of people, maybe even voters, forget about the consistency he showed throughout his career. And he didn't have a 7-8 year career. And this guy was pitching most of my life. So, he was a bulldog, really. And like you said, never associated with steroids. And it's at the end of the day, is he a Hall of Famer? Yes or no? And that should be the mindset going into voting.
Yeah, and you look at his, strikeouts per 9 innings. You look at his strikeouts per walk. This guy was a pinpoint pitcher. I mean, he just had impeccable control. He had tremendous mechanics, and I just so impressed by him. And you look at now we're in the analytics age. Schilling was doing the stuff on his own. He was writing by hand. He was looking at film before people even knew what film was. I mean, he was looking at the stuff in his laptop. He had all these CDs and DVDs and breaking down hitter swings, and he had a book on each umpire. So just to me, the preparation, he was ahead of his time, and he really would have excelled in this age when he had all this extra data available to him. That he was looking all this info up himself. That people are just like spoon feeding these guys right now. So he just, to me, he's a slam dunk. You talk about the win. Pedro didn't have that many wins either, so it's like the same sort of thing. And when you say second in the Cy Young voting, you never finish first. Look. He finished second to Randy Johnson, his teammate, twice. And those 2 years, those two guys right there were the best pitchers in baseball. So it's like if he was in the American League, maybe that, one of those years, he would have been this. It's just because he was pitching with Randy Johnson, his own teammate. And then the year with the Red Sox in 2004, he also had a Cy Young caliber year. And Johan Santana had a great year and just beat Schilling out. So he really did have, and even with the Phillies, he had some Cy Young. So he did have some Cy Young caliber seasons, I thought, pitching for some bad teams in Philly. So to me, the fact that he didn't win a Cy Young, didn't win 300, that doesn't take much away from what Curt Schilling was as a pitcher. Look at his record in eliminate games where his team would go home if when he was pitching. They would go home if he didn't win the game. His teams were, I think, 5-0 in those games. So this guy was the ultimate money pitcher, really, of his generation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And anytime I look at this situation, I just think, performance over politics. But, as we mentioned before, David Ortiz is getting his first opportunity to get into the Hall of Fame and most clutch playoff hitter in MLB history, in my opinion. And, I think in a lot of Red Sox fans' minds, it's a no-brainer for him to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I was wondering, why do you think, some writers might not vote for him?
There could be a DH bias there. It could be, one-dimensional player and do anything on defense. So I think, Edgar Martinez finally got in, but it took him a long time. But Ortiz was as great a pure hitter as Edgar Martinez was. David Ortiz was a far more impactful player with his power, with what he did in the postseason. And look, was David Ortiz, did he ever test positive for steroids that we know about? No. I mean, all we know is that there's this anonymous survey testing in 2003 where 103 players of baseball tested positive for some banned substance. We don't know what it was. We're never going to know because all that evidence was destroyed. But I know Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, did say in Ortiz's final weekend that it's unfair to judge Ortiz and assume that he did steroids based on that testing because that testing wasn't even enforced. That was for survey testing only. And they have no idea what it was. They didn't look into it that closely because they just wanted to see how many guys in baseball were doing steroids and to see if that would trigger the automatic testing for 2004, which ended up happening. And then since 2004, baseball players have been tested for steroids every year. So there's not a cut and dry case with Ortiz, whether he did PEDs or not. So I think that, but there could be some writers who say, oh, look, he was in this PED thing. He might have done PED. So that might be a reason some people take him off the ballot. I think one thing that helps David is that his huge personality treated the writers like gold. These are the guys who are going to be, a lot of these guys are going to be voting for him. So the same reason some of these guys might not vote for Schilling, fair or unfair, definitely unfair. I think Ortiz is going to get the benefit of the doubt in a lot of cases because he was such a goodwill ambassador for baseball. He always smiled. One of the most colorful interviews I've ever seen. One of the most fun guys to be around I've ever seen. Just brought a joy to the game. So I think that David, if he doesn't get in on this first year, I think he's going to be very close. I think he'll be up in the 70 percentile. He's going to get in second or third year. It's going to take him 2 or 3 years at most, but it also would not surprise me if he gets in this year.
I think he 100% deserves it. And I think too, the steroid era is so polarizing. I grew up in the steroid era. I was watching Mark McGwire hit bomb after bomb for so much of my childhood, and same with Barry Bonds. And he's coming up on his last year of eligibility. It's unclear if he's really going to get in. But is there, I mean, at some point, there's all those big steroid era guys are going to be off the ballot. So two-part question here. Do the steroid era guys, should they go into the Hall of Fame, considering someone like Barry Bonds accomplished a lot before he even tested positive? And my second part is, do you let, someone like Barry Bonds in, but then maybe not let A-Rod in, or vice versa?
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to do for the voters. And look, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, I put them in the same boat here. I look at both of these guys were Hall of Famers before they allegedly took a steroid. Roger Clemens is a Hall of Famer just based on what he did for the Boston Red Sox in those first 13 years. Barry Bonds, basically a Hall of Famer for what he did for the Pirates when he was this 175, 180-pound string bean of an outfielder. Just a great, great all-around player. And it's unfortunate that other guys did steroids. So what happened was, I think that guys wanted to keep up. They didn't want to be passed over, whether it's money, whether it's stats. Maybe they get caught up in this thing too. So I put Clemens and Bonds in for sure. Where it gets dicey is with a guy like A-Rod, like a guy like Manny Ramirez. These were guys who were suspended from baseball because they were caught. Okay, they were clearly tested positive. We still don't know for sure with 100% accuracy that Roger Clemens touched steroids. He said under oath that he didn't. Whether he's telling the truth or whether he's not, it's debatable. Brian McNamee, his trainer, obviously kind of threw him under the bus there, but he's got kind of a questionable character also. So it's hard. But you do know that certain guys, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, guys like that, Mark McGwire, who's built on power and really power only, and was very open about the fact later on, years later, that he did steroids. So the guys that who did it and they tested positive, I think you can keep those guys out in good conscience. But the other guys, it's hard for us to play judge and jury. There's a little bit of a, it's hard for me to just say, Barry Bonds, yeah, he did steroids. I don't know whether he did. Maybe some of these guys are already in the Hall of Fame in the last few years. Whether it be like Mike Piazza or, Jeff Bagwell. How do we know these guys didn't do steroids?
True.
They're in the Hall of Fame. So I just think that we can't, they played in the steroid era. So just say it was part of the steroid era. They were never penalized. They never failed the test. Put guys like that I put in. Guys that failed tests, I keep those guys out because with 100% certainty that they cheated. That's the best way that I can explain it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something that I've always said about Barry Bonds, even though I was a little bit younger when he did play, is he need to have a good swing to be able to hit that many home runs. Like obviously the steroids help, but you need to be a good baseball player to be able to be as good as he was. But it is kind of funny looking at the before and after pictures of him on the Pirates and him on the Giants. It looks like completely two people, and like you said, he was a string being with the Pirates. But yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, no, he was kind of two different players. The guy he was at the beginning of his career, when he was just a really gifted outfielder and base runner and hitter, and he always had a great eye. And then he just became, King Kong, just this massive power hitter with this unbelievable batting eye. And that was his plate discipline was off the charts. And you see a guy who was probably intentionally walked with nobody on base, intentionally walked with the bases loaded. I mean, who's been treated like this guy? So he's just he's a class unto himself. And did he probably do steroids? Yeah, I mean the evidence is there that he probably did. Would he have been in the Hall of Fame with if he never took a steroid? I'm sure he would have been. So I mean, he's just transcendent. He's a transcendent talent. Roger Clemens is a transcendent talent. Both those guys, I think, should be in the Hall of Fame, and it's going to be really fascinating. They'd have to make a pretty big jump to get in this year. I mean, this is their last time on the ballot, so going to be really curious to see. This is maybe the most fascinating ballot we've ever had this year. When we have Bonds and Clemens and Schilling on their last time on the ballot. We have David Ortiz on his first time on the ballot. So just it comes out on January 25th, and I think we're all waiting to see kind of what's going to happen on January 25th and how people are going to vote.
I'm definitely waiting. I'm following the ones who release their ballots, and there's trackers of like the percentiles and how they're kind of trending, and I'm constantly on those. And I know you said that you would leave A-Rod off the ballot because he for sure tested positive and he tampered with the game. Do you see any other writers maybe voting him in because he quote unquote served his time, because he did get suspended, he did come back? Or do you think he just kind of dug his own grave with testing positive, lying about it, and then getting caught again?
Look, I think unlike Bonds and Clemens, where we said, look, Bonds and Clemens put in, I think, each close to a decade or over a decade of non-steroid play, where I think Alex Rodriguez, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, he admitted he was doing steroids when he was with the Texas Rangers.
Yes.
And that's the 5th year of his career at that point. He went to Texas in 2001. So we don't know, the steroids for him could have started at a very early age. So we don't know what he would have been without steroid. We have less of an idea of what he would have been if he had never taken a steroid. And I've heard A-Rod call himself an idiot. Good for him being accountable. He said, "I'm an idiot. I cost myself millions of dollars by doing steroids. I cost myself a ton of reputation points by doing steroids." So at least one thing I like about A-Rod, he's been very accountable post-playing, where a lot of these guys are still like, even Bonds and Clemens, they neither one of them have ever admitted that they touched, an illegal substance, even though kind of circumstances point otherwise. So good for A-Rod, at least for being, accountable.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. His post career, I've gained a lot of respect for him. But anytime I watch, him hitting the ball out of Ronson Arroyo's glove, or the him and Veritek fight, it still like makes my blood boil, and I still scream expletives about the Yankees and A-Rod when I see both of those videos. But I really appreciate you coming on the show today, Ian, and all your insights about all these different subjects. And for anybody who wants to check out your articles throughout this offseason, as well as check out any of your social medias, where can they find you?
It's redsox.com. It's the best place for the articles. And my Twitter account is at Ian M. Browne, Browne. So those are the best places to go.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Ian.
you guys. That was a lot of fun.
We hope you enjoyed this Friday episode of Locked On Red Sox. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. And a huge thank you to MLB.com's Ian Browne for taking time out of his busy schedule to chat Rule 5 draft, the Hall of Fame, and everything in between with myself and with Jake. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Red Sox podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at Lauren, 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. Find Jake on Twitter at Jake Iggy, and the Locked On Red Sox Twitter account at LO_Red Sox. Don't forget to also check out all the other amazing Locked On shows across our network. Locked On A's, Locked On Yankees. Everyone is doing an amazing job, especially through this lockout. And now that you have made Locked On Red Sox your first listen of the day, head on over to Locked On Bets to make it your second listen. Locked On Bets is your one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. It's hosted by your boy Q, with expert insight and analysis from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We will be back Monday.